be continued. Welcome to the Liberty UA channel. Today we have Denis Eliseevich with us, a businessman and opposition figure in exile. Welcome, Denis.
Hello, Tatiana.
Please subscribe to our Liberty UA channel, give us likes, write comments, and please subscribe to Denis Eliseevich's channel as well. Now let's talk about peace negotiations.
Ukraine is now waiting for the United States to announce the date of the new round of negotiations.
Because due to the events in America, Zelensky stated that we are ready, but when and where the negotiations will take place is still unknown.
If we are not insisting on these negotiations due to this situation, with what resources do we plan to continue? To continue the war, I mean air defense systems, weapons, specifically troops and people.
I want to answer your question by asking a question in return. Are we sure that for Ukraine, peace negotiations are actually the top priority? Just like we're discussing this with you, I've heard it being discussed on other channels, the public is discussing it. But in general, for the public, for most people, for Zelensky and for that whole pack, is peace really their top priority? All the public here in Ukraine is definitely demanding peace from Trump. Do this, do that, you have to do this, that, and the other. But is peace really your top priority? Because it can't be that peace isn't the top priority for Ukraine, but it will be for Trump. I see aggressiveness, I see how many people are enjoying Zelensky's stupid statements and how many are now starting to badmouth Trump. Against the backdrop of the war in Iran and everything else people can latch onto. Are you really sure you want to be allies with the US? Are you really sure you want this peace, these peace negotiations? Honestly, I'm not sure about that. Some part of society, definitely a huge part, but is it a critical mass? I don't know.
People are outraged by this war, but what outrages them the most are the prices of oil, fuel, diesel, gasoline. People are outraged by this.
But this situation with the girls is being discussed a lot on the internet, that there was a shelling at a school, girls died there, some say 165 girls, others say 168.
However, we don't really know how many girls and boys, how many children have died in Ukraine as a result of Russian shelling.
We don't know this information for sure. No one will tell us exactly.
People are outraged by this, but they also discuss the situation and demand peace from Trump, because Zelensky says that we depend on Trump now. That's how it should be understood.
I actually suggest listening to Zelensky's statements. I want to end on a warm note since this topic about this school is always controversial and show you how Lukashenko is preparing for an attack. I can show you, of course, it's not a very humorous reason, but I can show you photos, satellite images that this school was located on the territory of a military unit. Typical tricks the Russians use, they love this trick, hiding behind children. It's nothing that not us, not because of that. That's why our people definitely need to stop discussing this.
People want peace because what do we see? We watch the Times.
And there they publish information that 250,000 additional soldiers need to be called up for service. And that's why mobilization will intensify.
And what is alarming is the fact that our government doesn't want peace if this will intensify.
The situation is that there are no volunteers willing to go to the front. Russia currently has more cards in its hands, and Trump has no time for us. What should our country do?
Subtitles. Well, I'm glad the Times counted everything. You can draft 250,000, send them to the front so that 250,000 remain at the front. We need to draft about 700,000 because 500,000 will flock for the check. And for that, it takes about 2 years. Just think about it. To draft 700,000, it takes about 2 years, maybe even 3. And I think it's already impossible. In reality, only 250,000 can go to the front. That's my opinion. It's impossible to do even that with the help of the TCC. That's nonsense from the Times. We can't continue the war. No, look, we can continue the war from a technical point of view, meaning we'll be bombed. We're running out of missiles. We have no money. Zelensky will keep provoking everyone, showing off like today. I guess we'll discuss this with you, that's all. Maybe a lot of our people will die, but we're still continuing the war, sort of, yes we are. Once a month there will be news updates. Look, we're practically advancing on the front like you saw recently. We broke through and are moving forward. This tiny episode is already being presented as if we're standing by the Kremlin. It's all nonsense, and I see this in other media outlets, how everyone is discussing it, chewing it over, talking about every little detail. None of that matters. We're in a very bad situation, and we have a big question about who is running Ukraine. I see our president, I've told you this before, I see how his psychopathy is progressing.
The candidates also raised doubts. By the way, yesterday Ihor Osichik and I discussed the situation regarding the advances at the front. Please take a look at this video, it's really important. He talks about the gray zones and about how Ukraine is actually advancing, and we discussed the candidates that they're trying to impose on us.
So people don't even have the idea anymore that we will choose these candidates ourselves, and those who want to vote will come there.
We know that Tika will either be a minister or the mayor of Kyiv, or Zelensky has complaints about the current one. Usik could be president.
And what's more, this will disappoint people even more.
It's all some kind of game. And basically, what's the point of it? Tika blurted it out. Tika blurted it out to basically discredit the elections and politics so that people would look at it and say, who should we vote for? This crazy witch? Let Zelenska, the costumed one, rule instead. She does it better. That's why Tika acts this way. Maybe Usik is doing the same thing right now, at least in part, but he definitely wants to be president. And for me personally, that's been no secret for a long time. You shouldn't judge by the freaks, but you should judge by the freaks. These freaks will fall apart when it comes to political questions. After all, what is Tika doing? She shows that any housewife can run the state. As Lenin said, you see, she completely discredits Ukraine, discredits the idea of reforms. The idea that politics is actually a serious matter for responsible people, not for fools and idiots. And that's what upsets me the most. And those who interview her, they are accomplices. We need to remember all of them. They all, directly or indirectly, work for the regime with draft exemption. I feel disgusted by the idea of discrediting the entire political process in Ukraine. We are at the level of, excuse me, some degenerates, and I don't want to consider us like that, and I don't think we are. We are Western civilization. It's 2026, it's time to get our act together, become serious, and choose serious people for power. People who have something to offer, who can argue, defend their point of view, who actually have a point of view. Let's start with that.
Actually, if people suggested what to do, that would be really important because fuel prices are high, maybe even unreasonably high.
And we were promised 90 billion in aid from Europe.
Now, because of the conflict between Orban and Zelensky, this money is being blocked. Zelensky says that one country in the European Union probably can't block this money. If someone does block it, he will give this person's address to our soldiers, though he doesn't specify to whom exactly.
Let them call him Orban and talk to him in their own language. How do you understand this?
What is this message and appeal to Orban?
Zelensky is directly threatening the prime minister of a neighboring country, a member of the European Union, a member of NATO. Let me remind you, Hungary is a member of the European Union and a member of NATO. Zelensky is directly threatening. Pay attention to a few points. Well, Stefanchuk is sitting and looking at Zelensky. It's obvious that it was written on a piece of paper. On a piece of paper, first of all, it's clearly visible that he was reading. Stefanchuk was peeking at that piece of paper. Budanov was sitting there in shock. I'm telling you straight, he was just sitting like this and thinking, what is even happening here? Zelensky was also a bit fidgety in that state, although she's not much different, and someone wrote that for Zelensky. If someone wrote that for me, I wouldn't know what to do with that assistant, but I wouldn't keep people like that. In principle, in theory, but Zelensky has them, and he gladly does all of it. Who writes this? We're dealing with complete idiots. Who could write something like that to the president? But there's a big question about Zelensky's condition. When he was reading it, I saw him, he was smacking his lips. He liked it so much, he was almost out of breath. He was thrilled by how he was threatening Orban. This is not a normal situation, Tatiana. We've already sunk to some kind of low-level threats. All right, look, Zelensky is opposing Orban. How does it look considering there are prime minister elections in April, right, in Hungary? And what do you think? Does all this help Orban get elected or does it hurt him? If you're against Orban, I claim it actually helps him get elected because right now Orban, all of this instantly is turned into a cool video. His video editors, his team make it. Look, if Zelensky, who is completely discredited in the eyes of the world community, a corrupt figure, is against me, then maybe I'm not so bad. Maybe I'm actually good. And with all this, including blocking the Druzhba oil pipeline, they are actually helping Orban get elected. Notice what Ursula is doing. I don't like her, you know that, but she's not stupid. Look at what she's doing now. She's also against Orban. But she made a request to Zelensky, personally called him and said, let our people inspect it. If you inspect the oil pipeline, does the damage appear beyond repair? Orban shows satellite photos, came out with the photos. Here is reliable information. There is no damage that would prevent repairs or continued operation. And Ursula doesn't say anything to Orban, like, you're a so-and-so. They stay silent, they've taken a neutral position, which actually corresponds to European norms. But she knows that right now because Orban also uses her in his promotional campaign videos. If she openly goes after Orban now, she'll be helping him. He'll say, look, Ursula is discredited, everyone knows it, she's against me. Look, Zelensky Orban right now, I'll be honest with you, is losing, according to the data I trust, he's losing, not by much, but he's losing. And all this helps Orban get re-elected. So the question is, are you against Orban? Are you for Orban? What's going on? How can you threaten? Is this really the best idea anyone in this world could have? A country that's bankrupt, threatening others, sitting there where thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people have died and we're threatening someone? I'll tell you what they did next. They paid huge amounts of money to social networks, former influencers, and the Western press, and they did it on a massive scale. Very prominent figures, I'll tell you, are posting a video of Zelensky with American subtitles, where it says, this is the story. So, we're ready to help and instruct the Middle East, and these influencers add their own text. Trump asked Zelensky for help to shoot down Iranian Shaheds. I wrote this in fake news. Trump didn't ask for anything. The US didn't ask for anything. These were very cautious conversations. Moreover, Zelensky initiated them. And not everything is as they tell you. But that's just huge money. Tatiana, you can't do something like that for $500,000. They bought dozens, maybe hundreds, just among former influential influencers. That's millions of dollars. I can tell you responsibly, money is being invested in this. But this is fake news to show, look, Trump came running to me, and you know what other narrative there is? So now those who don't have cards, they write, well, you know, like Trump, you don't have cards. He said, this is irresponsible state management. This would lead, I always told you, it would lead to disaster. And today it has led Ukraine to disaster. And I ask you to pay attention. On March 5th, 2026, Putin hadn't carried out heavy shelling of the city of Kiev for several days or even a week. What do we know? In such cases, he is accumulating, he is building up, and he will respond to the situation in Iran. Everything is against us.
Zelensky said that we will give some drones in exchange, interceptor drones in exchange for air defense systems.
Regarding this money, today there was information that on March 5th, Britain specifically allocated £800,000, $1 million precisely, to support Ukrainian culture as part of the Centennial Cultural Partnership.
So, they allocated it at the end of February. From the 24th, they wrote specific amounts, what they were allocated for energy support, for societal resilience, and for promoting justice.
It's not clear how this works, but $30 million have been allocated for this, and today specifically $1 million for culture, possibly for the media.
It's still not clear why this is happening, but the situation is what it is, and Orban is reacting in his own way. What do you think? Why doesn't Zelensky want to supply oil through this Druzhba pipeline? When Ursula called Zelensky, then Shmihal spoke.
He said that when we were being shelled, we were pumping very hot oil and damaged the equipment because it was done right under the shelling. That was his quote.
And accordingly, it's dangerous, so we can't allow Ursula in there.
Zelensky says, yes, it's really a breakdown. Now he says he can't finance Russia. What's the reason?
Zelensky presents it under the pretext that it's Russian oil. What kind of absurdity is that? We will be financing the Russians so they can bomb us, sorry. And before that, oil wasn't going there? It was. The hybrid war has been going on since 2013, 2017, and the full-scale one since 2022. The oil was flowing, it was. And now suddenly something has changed drastically, right before the elections in Hungary. So that's the second thing. And you know about reverse gas, that's Russian gas, which let's say Russia supposedly sent to Slovakia, and Slovakia resells it to us. For example, I might say it goes to the Czech Republic or another European country, but the gas is still Russian. So it's like, you know, there's this trick in business. You buy some product in China, then you remove the Made in China sticker and put on a Made in Germany one, for example, and that's it. Now it's German, some kind of medical device or Swiss. This is pretty much the same thing. I mean, it's absurd. It's just absurd. If this happened now, it means someone needs it. I suspect it, and we can still suspect that Ursula is playing her own game and not using Zelensky as a useful idiot. In this case, playing against Orban through a leader who is not from the European Union de jure right now. Well, in short, the motives don't really matter here. It's a big mistake to quarrel with your neighbors. It's a big mistake to behave provocatively like that. It's a big mistake to escalate relations with anyone at all. And then to be surprised when something gets blocked for us to start blackmailing like this, saying, yo, give it to me and I'll unblock you. I'm telling you again, the most important thing is that our situation is bad, and I insist that we need to hold elections as soon as possible. Obviously, Zelensky is not fit to run the country. You don't have to listen to me. Take this video, all his available statements, his facial expressions, all his intonation. It shows that all of this is personal for him. It's all personal to him. Ukraine's interests don't matter as much to him. It's personal for him. Did I bend you to my will or not? Can I do it to you or not? These are very, very bad signs.
If you look at this blackmail specifically, what does it mean for Ukrainians? 90 billion are blocked. At the moment, Slovakia will not supply electricity in situations when there are attacks in Ukraine, and neither will European countries. Well, maybe they have other motives, but they are blocking Ukraine's accelerated accession to the EU. Recently, they said there was no date, and now they say that we want to secure Ukraine in the EU, but we can't cancel the merit-based system. Why do you think they are disappointing Zelensky so much?
Nothing was planned anyway. Today, Politico officially wrote that the countries of the European Union have blocked Ukraine's accelerated accession to the EU. That's it. There's nothing more to talk about. It's officially blocked now. It was never unblocked. You see, it's all just talk. Like Ursula said, you can set any date you want there, no problem. It's the same with talk that one day we'll be accepted somewhere. They won't let us in. And today, this is officially the end of Poroshenko's policy, Zelensky's policy, this idiotic policy that will be accepted somewhere and become successful. First, they won't accept us. Second, that cannot be the cause of success. It might even be the opposite. And now, if there were a political process in Ukraine, leaders could come to the forefront and say, guys, that's it. The official maneuver in the union, so what now? Is there another way? And it turns out that there is another way. There are allied relations with the US, autonomy from the European Union in terms of completely abandoning this idea, but the European Union, let's trade as openly and freely as possible, with no restrictions to the extent you're willing and we can. Let's continue with visa-free travel, let's have bank accounts, let's do whatever we want without membership. We need to trade with everyone as much as possible, but we need to do our own thing. And do we need migrants? And I assure you, if Zelensky had agreed to something, or if things had gone a certain way, and wait, there's more. The story with the IMF isn't over yet, whether there are secret clauses or not. Regarding migrants, we'll take a look at all of this and see, because the European Union is one thing, but look at what the IMF is doing and what their requirements are. These VATs on FOBs, they really mean nothing at all. But it's important not to overlook that a huge article came out in Ukrainska Pravda, and there, like insiders, journalists from Ukrainska Pravda are reporting about Yermak. Well, it's like the first quarter without Yermak. How is it happening? How is everything organized? And there, it literally says, like in the gym, in the morning, Yermak shows Zelensky a post from someone, a YouTube video, a comment, and his mood already starts to go bad. And in this emotional state, Yermak pushes him like, let's do this, let's do that. And Zelensky makes these decisions emotionally. So when you read this article, you know, Ukrainska Pravda, my opponents. But when there is something useful there, I say it. And regardless of who or where, that's how it is. If you read it, I read it. You know, you can't run even a kiosk that sells beer like this. You'll go bankrupt in a week, but that's how our country is run. And everyone admits it. Tons of commissions, meetings, gatherings. The cabinet of ministers is in session. The president's office is in session. Everyone is always in session, but nowhere are decisions actually made. Everyone is too afraid to take initiative. How can this country function? Is it even a country or just a state? So, you see, this is the Soviet Union, you know, where initiative is punished. Just sit there. If they tell you to raise your hand at meetings, you raise it and the leader will decide everything. It just happens by itself. That's how it ended and that's how it will end for us too. I don't want that. The word ended already means the catastrophe has happened, like an apocalypse. There's even a worse word for everything to end in an apocalypse. We need to remove this person from power through democratic means. And he was shouting that it was necessary when the impeachment law was being passed, well, when the impeachment law was adopted. I posted this on +1 yesterday. He was sitting and talking on Moshchachuk's show, Right to Power. So there are no elections, we can't declare impeachment, so what are we then? It turns out we're hostages to a person who clearly shows unhealthy signs. That's how it is.
I'm interested. In this situation, when the Constitution doesn't work, and these things are happening that we see under a non-functioning Constitution, what rights do the people have?
Maybe then for changes to bring order when the Constitution doesn't work at all.
But this isn't the limit of the Russian language. This isn't the limit.
Sometimes it doesn't work. It just happened that it doesn't work at all for us. So how can we act in these conditions?
All that's left is to ask President Trump and the United States for help. Second, to rally around leaders who can offer something. And you see, Tatiana, everyone who is against this situation should ask themselves today, what can I do? What is safe for me to do, let's say, for the cause? It's safe to yes, if you don't want to repost on your account, you can send a link to someone in private messages. You can help someone financially. You're already doing a lot. You're already doing something. Come to your circle of friends. Tell them the truth. Meet with friends, with relatives, always. Now, everyone, you have to agree, ends up talking about politics. Tell them 2 or 3 details they didn't know. Give your arguments. Maybe they'll think about it. And if 1 million people do this, then everything will change tomorrow. But I'm absolutely against just sitting on the couch with a beer and talking about us. Everything has already been decided by the Masons, the Illuminati. Everything is settled. We don't decide anything now. Everything is bad. Ukraine won't exist. The war will last forever. Zelensky's been president for 20 years. That's utter nonsense for sheep, but I'm not speaking for sheep.
Because of your position, they wrote about you in the Renaissance Foundation.
It's not clear, as if some situation is forming in the government that's not in its favor, and then you take advantage of it? But they didn't specify how. Do you take advantage of it?
No, they did specify that you work according to Sherry's methods. Do you think I'm using those methods with you during this broadcast? This is a calling of the soul. I didn't decide to make money or go into politics. You understand how life will turn out next is another conversation. But that was never the goal. First of all, I'm not working. And second, what does Sherry have to do with me at all? We're talking about completely different things. We have different backgrounds. If for him this was the path to success, then for me, I repeat, it's about public relations and connecting with Sharik. He made money on YouTube. I was earning it before YouTube. That's the big difference. And the Renaissance Foundation is the largest Soros foundation. And why did they attack me so much? Attack me. In 2024, they had this report on their website. Why did they attack me so much? They sense danger because they bought everyone off, that's all. Their agenda and narratives are promoted by all the biguses, Slidstvo, Info, these Ukrainska Pravdas, Mishas, Tkaks, all of them. They're all Soros people. Severenko, the prime minister, Soros person. Mustafa Naim, Soros guy. Leshchenko, Soros guy. This whole pack of Soros people. And then some Eliseevich appears, someone we can't bribe, and he says things that are terrible, just terrible. If the masses start saying these things tomorrow, that's it. Tatiana, if someone like Soros or someone else had bought off all those people I mentioned to you and they said what I'm saying, Ukraine would be different tomorrow. What does this mean? They don't want a different Ukraine, they want Ukraine at war. With a bunch of inefficient, unprofitable state enterprises where they can put their own people on supervisory boards and milk this country, milk the men, send them to the cemetery. Those who could emigrated. They bring in all sorts of people here who will vote for who knows what. With such policies, we're no longer Ukraine, but some kind of Syria in the center of Europe.
Ukrainian media wrote the following. Naftogaz hired 2 top global companies, and their task is to help Naftogaz.
This is a state institution to deal with debts, find new loans, and properly prepare the paperwork for Western banks.
The cost of the matter is 430 million hryvnias for several years of work. Who will pay for this?
Naftogaz is a state institution, and its profits will come from gas sales or from the state budget.
And accordingly, people will see the corresponding charges in their utility bills. If this organization doesn't have enough of its own funds, then where does this money come from? Just imagine paying 430 million just to sort out the documentation.
Look, I listened from the beginning, 430 million just to sort out the documentation.
430 million hryvnias for a few years of work, about 2 or 3. Who needs to be paid?
To people, I'll tell you, financial geniuses, 2 top global companies, Rothschild with financial, consulting geniuses. I see.
So it's consulting, well, it's consulting. Yes, everything is clear. You know, it's absurd to privatize everything to hell and let the private owner hire Deloitte, Pricewaterhouse, Rothschild, or anyone they want.
To pay 430 million from the state budget and raise prices in people's bills, this information was reported by Ukrainian media outlets. Today, Zelensky says that a plan for Kiev's resilience needs to be developed by Tuesday, by March 10th. The preliminary plan is as follows. Road repairs need to be in order, 52 billion hryvnias are needed for this, and accordingly, more funds should be allocated as well.
The amount of funds for frontline and evacuation routes, how can you comment on this?
You mentioned Kyiv, and all of this is being said as an attack on Klitschko in this context. And Klitschko is very weak. He's weak as a politician. He's already finished as a politician. His political strategies are weak. I wouldn't be surprised if Zelensky manages to remove Klitschko from this position. He manages the city, Kyiv, terribly. He doesn't go into an open head-on confrontation. Why? Because first of all, he has something to lose, and secondly, he has no ideology, unlike Poroshenko. Yes, Zelensky is bad, but basically, we will stick to our positions. We don't need elections, nothing, no reforms, and basically, we've adapted to living with the war. That's why I don't want to take anyone's side or refuse to take a side. Plans and resilience are nonsense. Putin hasn't abandoned his nasty plans for shelling Ukraine, for creating the second part of the humanitarian catastrophe, you understand? Which will already be an addition to the first part of the humanitarian catastrophe. And they want to promote themselves on road repairs in Ukraine. People send this to me. I could never believe it. I haven't seen roads like this in Ukraine since the 90s. We have a national catastrophe, And if we don't hold presidential elections, then parliamentary, then local, or parliamentary and local at the same time, then we will have nothing. You're talking to me right now. Viewers are watching us, then they open Telegram, read the news or some websites, then they listen to someone else. But at the end of the day, each of you should ask yourself, don't you think we've just been stuck for years? In Ukraine, they say we're just going round in circles. We've just been stuck on the same thing for years. People argue makeup. The war started there, ended there. Zelensky made a speech. Everyone around us is bad. Everyone is a scoundrel. Everyone is a Kremlin agent, but nothing changes. And even in wartime, we shouldn't be stuck. At least people had some hope. We need to hold elections. Because the election process gives people faith. Like, wow, something can be done. Things can move. Something can change. Then a new president will come, end the war, and start reforming Ukraine, and God willing, bring prosperity to Ukraine. And there is no other way. There just isn't.
I also want to discuss the environmental catastrophe with you, as it is very important.
They say that there was information recently that the Russians will be shelling hydraulic structures and dams.
We know that they have carried out attacks before, but now there was a direct quote from Zelensky predicting that they will shell these targets. Starting from 2025, funding began to protect these structures. Documents have been signed for 175 million euros, so part of the money has already arrived, and part of the funds will be coming in.
This money needs to be directed only towards protecting these systems so that they are not shelled. Do you think, given the current government we have, that the situation we had with the energy sector could happen again? And how can we avoid it?
It can't happen again. Everything everywhere will repeat itself. Because all the money is stolen by small-time crooks at the bottom, big fish at the top, and when the state owns it, there's no other way. It will be stolen. And it's pointless to discuss this because we need to do everything we can to end the war. I state categorically, Zelensky is not interested in ending the war. He simply doesn't want to end the war. And we can sit here for another 5 years discussing where and how much money was allocated, whether it's good or bad, whether it will be stolen or not. Everything will be stolen. Continuing the war is bad. We need to think about building, not about how to fix something. We are already behind the rest of the world, and many people are fine with that.
And to protect, because the energy sector wasn't protected, they sat without heat, without electricity. It's terrible.
Now, if there are problems with the sewage system, there will be bursts and sewage will flood the cities, especially posing threats to large cities like Kyiv, Dnipro, and Odessa.
Putin has a goal to bring it to this. And imagine if he also strikes the energy sector, then the refrigerator won't work. Where will we store food? And what if you also don't have water at that time, or it's intermittent? Right now, people were sitting without electricity for 12 hours, but imagine 12 hours without water, or 2 or 3 days without water. And what if infections and epidemics or pandemics start? Well, it's fine. Zelensky will come out and say, just wait, we're tough as flint, we're like steel, hang in there. Otherwise, you're not real patriots and maybe even Kremlin agents. If you don't want to live in crap without electricity, then you're Kremlin agents. Love me. And no elections. Elections are only needed by Putin and the Americans. Ukrainians don't need elections. You see, democracy isn't for Ukrainians, democracy is for America, which just wants, but for Ukraine, it's dictatorship. But even under dictatorship, he will still be telling Iran what needs to be done, overthrowing someone and giving people the right to freedom. Do they even have a conscience? You're fighting against a dictator, so why are you acting just like Putin? That's it. There's no difference between them.
Regarding whether we will help, or maybe it's better to call it helping with drones or with experience.
So Zelensky talks about this, but he says it in a way that seems like some kind of blackmail is implied.
At first, he said to the United Arab Emirates, we will give you specialists, they will show you how to use things, we will help with weapons. But you talk to Putin so that we can have a truce, now he says that we can exchange weapons. So these drones for missiles, Patriot, we need Patriot, we will give you these drones, you give us those.
Do you think we could or should provide qualified assistance to these countries if they need it for free and without any conditions?
You see, I thought it wasn't that noticeable from the outside, but even you noticed. At first he says one thing, now he's already asking for missiles. He's like a mini arms baron trying to pull something off with someone just to keep his power. I told you today how they finance their propaganda, and now you're telling me about exchanging for patriots. I want to ask a question. Anyone at all, you, Tatiana, me, the viewers, write in the comments. Have you heard from anyone from the Arab world, from any Pentagon representatives? Have you seen any videos? We are asking Ukraine, we have requested from Ukraine, we are in negotiations with Ukraine. You've never heard this from anyone except Zelensky, so draw your own conclusions. Is it possible that no one actually reached out to us and it was us who reached out? Yes, Zelensky's administration has pretty good relations with the countries of the Arab world. Pretty good. You see, we even hold negotiations there. We held them in Abu Dhabi. But what if he called, then sat before the camera and spun the situation his way, making himself look good to the gullible? Of course, there were such conversations in the West about Ukraine having huge... I'm not saying that's not true, but the way Zelensky presents it is definitely fake news. And that's what we need to focus on. And these people pushing for exchanges, give them to us. Okay, we gave them. So what? Now we don't end the war. I have a simple question. How do you even want to wage war if, according to Reuters, Putin destroyed our entire energy infrastructure because we simply didn't have KF-16s for the planes? No missiles, just empty warehouses. So what kind of war are you talking about then? So it turns out, if the war had ended 6 months ago, people wouldn't have had to go through such a difficult winter. That's how it is, and the previous ones were tough, but this one was especially hard. And how many people died? How many people were forced by the situation to leave their homes? That's aside from the direct shelling, the direct deaths, not to mention the military losses, the losses there. So we see the continuation of the war. It's a loss for Ukraine. How am I supposed to sit here and explain this every broadcast when it's already obvious? Even a blind person should see it. Guys, that's how it is. Everything is bad. War won't lead to anything good. I'm very glad that Budanov said this on the telethon. No, there are no countries in history that have prospered during war. War only destroys countries, and our president says let's fight as long as it takes and presents it under a certain pretense. Also, I won't abandon the country in such a difficult moment. I will run in the elections as well. In short, Mendel wrote a good post. He sets the conditions himself. I actually said this before, but okay, I'll refer to her. He sets conditions that are obviously impossible to fulfill, changes his mind about everything every day, refuses to agree to anything, and puts forward new conditions that are again impossible to fulfill. He claims to be a Democrat, stating, I'm ready to hand over power to you now. Elections, yes. Elections, no. Like in that Italian press, that's a wrong translation. What the hell is happening to our country? We're bewitched, people are hypnotized. Don't you see what's happening? Yes, nothing happens if you don't act. No streets, no maidans. This will only lead to worse things. But within what you can do, I already said today, well, do something, unite. I emphasize, I am not calling to overthrow the government, only the democratic way. We need elections. For the demand of elections, there is no article.
Mazarashu said today, address the voters, write to the deputies.
They should respond, and when Zelensky sees that some post has 1.5 or 2 million views, then he will react to it. I don't know.
We are precise. I kindly ask you to subscribe to our channel, share our video, share it with your friends, subscribe to Dennis's channel. Thank you very much for being with us. Until next time, thank you.